happy to be with you. Hi, hello, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're at in the world. I'm so happy to be with you. My name is Matthias Barker. I'm a psychotherapist. We're going to be talking about family conflict, talking about estrangement, and I kind of want to zoom in on something that just dropped that really kind of captured my attention. So let's just kind of dive right into it. Mel Robins, the wonderful, insightful, lovely Mel Robins, she came out with a post recently in the New York Times with Karl Pillemer, who anyone who knows is like a legend in the like estrangement research space. Such an incredible author, wrote a book called Fault Lines. Especially when I was just going through my own estrangement, going through parent-child conflict. His book in particular was such an oasis of insight and rest, and it just felt validating and important, and I just loved his book. So grateful for his work. But let's dive in just to like a video of Mel Robins that I think kind of maybe sets the scene, and then we're going to dive into that article. Then we're going to do some Q&A. We're going to have a great time just kind of having some interaction back and forth. Excited that everyone's here. Hello, hello. Where's everyone at in the world? We have chat going everywhere. Good grief. Okay, so this is kind of fun. So we are streaming on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Kick, Twitch. Am I missing anything? Everywhere in the world. Okay, so let's just dive in. Okay, so this is a post by Mel that I think kind of sets the scene.
Parents, they've likely, people are who they are. And you've got to learn how to love them for who they are, not for who you wish they would be. Most people, the older they get, the more rigid and more entrenched they become in who they are. Your parents, they've likely not gone to therapy, nor do they want to. The issues that you see in their marriage that you wish you could change or make better, they've been there forever. They're not changing. And something that's helped me develop a level of acceptance and love with my folks is just saying to myself, they gave me everything they could based on their life experience. And when you operate knowing that even though the person isn't going to change, I never said you couldn't. And what I found over and over is the second that I change how I show up in a relationship, the relationship changes for the better. People are who they are.
There seems to be kind of like this this fork in the road. This is how it feels to me, at least. Like when I see a lot of just content regarding family estrangement, it seems like our options are like, I can accept them for who they are. And I can kind of let go of control. Let's say that. Or, you know, I think on the other end, there's maybe a fork in the road up here too. It's something like hold them accountable. Or, you know, something like I get distance. And maybe distance could range from all the way from like a cutoff or an estrangement to hard and fast boundaries to even like emotionally pulling back to a degree. These seem to be like our options. And I think this is really reflected also in the article that they brought up. So maybe let's just read a few segments of the article and then we'll just try to open this up. Here's my hope is like, I want to be able to find a pathway through this that doesn't feel like we have to just swallow or suppress our experience, but also doesn't make demands of our family members that aren't realistic or that aren't going to lead to anything fruitful. Because you could see like, okay, like the accept and let go situation. All right, I'm just going to let go of control and just accept it. That feels liberating, especially when we kind of tag on this idea of like, well, you know, they did the best they could given their life experience. They're only capable of what they produced at the time. And that answer, I don't know about you, that answer has never really sat right with me. That people are always doing their best. People only did the best they could. Because we have choice, right? Like we have an ability to deliberate between different options. And yeah, okay, so maybe like it wasn't within our parents' range to become like the perfect therapeutically trained parenting guru that maybe we daydream about. But certainly there was a range of options, and they could have chosen some healthier ones. So to accept that, well, okay, they did the best they could and let go, it's almost just like I have to kind of let this part of me fade away that's like, well, I hoped for something more. And maybe that hope for something better feels a bit invalidated or a bit unseen when I just say, well, they did the best they could. I mean, I think this is leveraged in some cases, not all cases, by parents to say something like, well, you can't just get mad at me. You can't hold me to these standards and to this bar because after all, I just did the best I could. So if you have hopes for more, if you had, I don't know, a standard that is above and beyond this, then that's just you daydreaming. You know, that's you not being in reality, because the reality is this is like all there was. And so if you're going to confront this and be discontent with this, that's a you problem. That's usually what that gets turned into. Because what are you going to do? Get mad at someone for doing the best they could? It feels invalidating. It feels like we're kind of sidestepping responsibility, right? Okay, so there's discontentment there. I'll expand on that in a minute. And then there's these other options. One option is like to hold them accountable. And I don't know if you've had any success in that. I don't know if I exactly have. Like, there's a lot of there's a lot of feelings of like, well, I can't let them off the hook. And I'm always wondering, like, what hook do you have them on necessarily? Because I don't know if you've really tried to kind of like confront somebody with the brute reality of how they've affected you, and to really share your heart and show your emotions with their full emotional charge. But it doesn't seem to bode very well. If someone's not very open-minded to hearing that, if someone doesn't have a desire to come towards you, upping the intensity, holding them accountable, holding them to account doesn't seem to maybe result in the thing that we really want. In some cases, bringing that kind of emotional intensity to someone can make it worse. But then there's the distance option of just like, okay, well, if I can't hold them accountable, then I guess I'm just going to get some distance. Because then I'm honoring, my experience. Because this option just feels like I have to, I don't know, like pretend like it didn't matter and just kind of let it go. And I've tried to let it go, but it doesn't work because I still have that pit in my stomach and I still feel gross and awful on the inside. So, all right. I've tried to grit through it. I've tried to let it go. I've tried to kind of like make my peace about it, but that's not working. And since I can't really hold them accountable, no matter what kind of line I throw out there to try to bring them in to seeing my experience, they don't seem to get on the hook, much less letting them off it. Okay, so that's not working either. So then it's like, I guess I'm going to get distance. I'm going to pull back a little bit, and if they start to intrude, I'll pull back a little more. And if they start to get upset with that, which many parents do, then maybe I even cut off. And it almost seems like we kind of go in these cycles of like pulling a little bit further back, until we're just gone. And the parents are often kind of confused because this usually doesn't come with some sort of disclosure or paperwork of like why it happened, how to fix it. There's not an on-ramp to deeper conversation for a lot of adult kids. It's like we just kind of leave it be. So what do we do with this whole mess? Tricky. Okay, so the article in the New York Times. This was really cool. I thought they did a really great job here with this article. Life is too short to fight with your family. I think you're going to see some of these themes brought out here. So right at the beginning, we're in the middle of a family relationship crisis. At least 1 in 4 American adults are estranged from a close relative. 2/3 of Americans say that families aren't spending enough time together, and these rifts occur equally across age groups, education levels, races, religions, according to the largest ever study done of family estrangement, which one of us, Dr. Pillemer, conducted a few years ago. This I find actually very fascinating, and I'm wondering, like, I read that, and a part of me doesn't really think that's true, but I also trust Pillemer. He's the guy in the space, so who am I to disagree with the guy? But it seems like there would be cultural variance. We know this like worldwide. Did he specify this is just in the United States? Because 2/3 of Americans. Yep, Americans. Okay. I can get on board with that. Because like people in Africa aren't cutting off their parents. People in South America aren't cutting off their parents. Maybe people in Europe, probably not. It seems like it's an American thing in particular, at the rate, I'd say in the quantity that we're seeing it. There seems to be a cultural societal philosophical shift that has opened up the accessibility of this option to set a boundary with a parent who you feel isn't acting towards you in a healthy way. And so my guess is that wouldn't be equally dispersed amongst all people groups, that there would be actually variance within. So when he says rifts occur equally across all age groups, education levels, races, and religions, I trust him. I think, like I said, Pillemer wouldn't say that, I guess, unless it's true, right? I don't know. Pillemer, what do you think? If you're watching this, you're probably not watching this. I love you, sir. You're great. That was a little much. Okay. Yes, there are important reasons to cut ties with certain people intentionally, but we're not just cutting people off. We're letting our closest relationships disintegrate through neglect, busyness, and an unwillingness to move past the things that bother us. Busyness. Maybe. I don't think any adult kid would say this is it. But can I just speak from my own experience for a sec? It's like, so I went through an estrangement with my own dad off and on over the course of the past 3-4 years. We currently are in somewhat of a partial relationship where we have relationship, but it's boundaried. And it took a lot of really honest work to get there. And I feel really content and happy with it. And it's in process. I think both of us hope that it continues to repair ongoing. And there's a long story there. I'll tell it sometime, but now's not the time for it. Anyway, I noticed that it was easy when there is estrangement, when there is a cutoff, when there is less relationship, that life can kind of just carry on. And especially when you don't have those regular touch points, like you don't see them at the grocery store, you don't see them for your Sunday dinner, you don't see them at the, I don't know, wherever, church or whatever. This out of sight, out of mind thing, I don't know, it does have an effect. It did in my life. I wouldn't say it's like it's like the busyness was the main thing that then pushed forward the disconnect, but it was like this ingredient in the soup that did have an effect. I just feel like there would be times, especially once I kind of like reinstated contact with my dad, and I'm like, oh, okay, we're going to start getting coffee or lunch every once in a while. Like a month will go by, and I'm like, oh, I should probably call him, and, you know, I should probably grab coffee or something. So the busyness does have something to do with it, but I wouldn't put it as like the culprit. Okay, we're letting our closest relationships disintegrate through neglect, busyness, and unwillingness to move past the things that bother us. Okay, I'll address that last statement there because there's something to that we should address, but let's keep going. You may think it's better for your mental health to slowly distance yourself from someone that you have difficulties with, but in the long run, it will likely have a devastating impact on your happiness and well-being. As a professor studying family estrangement and an author and a podcast host, we've learned from very different vantage points that most of us wait excruciatingly long to absorb this message. Okay, so research on end of life. This is cool about Karl Pillemer. As a researcher, so he does not just estrangement work, but he works with a lot of folks in, I don't know, just the elder years of life, and just not just in reference to their family members, but asking about like life lessons, regrets, things learned, reflections towards the end of their life, and just kind of, I guess, collecting the wisdom and the insight of older generations in maybe a cultural moment where we seem to value that, at least in America, very little. He has zoomed up on that and is archiving it in a really beautiful way. So grateful for him doing that. So I believe him when he goes forward. That research on end of life, people don't regret missing out on a promotion or failing to buy a bigger house. They regret not asking for forgiveness. They regret not expressing their love more often. They regret holding a grudge. And they regret letting relationships with their families and friends fall apart. Certainly. Yeah, that makes sense. Fortunately, the same research that highlights these life regrets also points towards solutions. Okay, cool. Despite an increased burden of disease and the toll taken on by the death of loved ones, research has shown that people over the age of 65 on average being happier than young adults. Okay, this is an interesting piece, but let me skip ahead to this part. I thought this was interesting. Older people, what? All right, we're back. It's moments like that prove this is live, right? Okay, so older people, our research suggests, understand the importance of distinguishing between what they can control and what they can't, and ruthlessly focusing their energy on the former. Your husband's side of the family has politics that bother you, or your college-age kids don't call as much as you'd like. Accept it, move on. You can't control their behavior, but you can choose how much you dwell on it and whether to hold it over their heads. And he goes into a lot of interesting research there too. Okay, let's just pause right here. This is another one of those statements that I think has an element of truth, but just kind of like I think glides over the particulars in a way that isn't always very helpful. So we have the statement, they did the best they could. There's a version of that that's true, but it doesn't cover the full span. We need to accept and move on and not dwell on what we can't control. Sure. yeah, of course. I mean, it has the same tone, has the same explanatory power as a statement like, everything happens for a reason. It feels to me, it feels like just like that. Everything happens for a reason. And then you're like, cool. What's the reason? And maybe things just happen because life is hard and not everything has a big master plan behind it. Sometimes people just suffer because people make bad decisions. And it feels nice to believe everything happens for a reason. And it's certainly not the case that everything just happens in nihilistic randomness. Like there's probably somewhere in the middle, depending where you land philosophically, religiously, that is true. But it's these comforting phrases that we say in life's hardships that leave people on the edges, wondering where they stand. And so I want to kind of zoom in on just some of the pieces of this that are at play and try to offer some clarity. What I kind of see is an option that can hold more, maybe not all certainly, but more of the dynamic range that people are experiencing. So maybe let's look at this. Okay, so I can accept and move on. There's an aspect of truth to this, but there's a key step, I think, before you can make this work. It is true that when it comes to wanting to your hopes here. Sorry, let's do this. Oh, I had okay. All right. Sorry, my settings were wrong. Let's do this. Let's say that really you have two options when it comes to a family member that has hurt you or that has a behavior that's not healthy. I mean, those are the two reasons that we're having issues, right? It's like there's a behavior that's an issue, or there's something in the past, like a past hurt. Now, what we do with this is kind of, there's a few different options here. We can confront the behavior, right? I mean, some sort of confrontation is where a lot of people go. And that's somewhat of a request. Like you can confront in two ways too. You can set a boundary, or you can make a request. So I can, whether it's the past hurt, whether it's the behavior, it's like, hey, I want to talk about this hard thing that happened in the past. It's important to me. And I'm requesting perhaps that you go to therapy with me, or that you apologize, or that you take accountability, or even that you just acknowledge it, right? So there's some form of a request. And a request is like, we don't have control over how they respond to the request, but there are invitations that are more or less likely to be responded to positively. Like, that's just self-evident that I could come at someone really hot and just be like, hey, you narcissist, like, admit that you're a abusive, selfish piece of scum. Like I could go really hot, and that's not likely to be responded to. But there are invitations that have a higher likelihood of positive response. I mean, that's like all the communication skills that have been talked about and discussed and gone over for the past, 30 years worth of psychological research. Now, what we found is that perfect communication skills do not guarantee a good outcome. Obviously, perfect communication, you could word it perfectly, and someone can decide to completely disregard you and get defensive anyway. But that's not to say that the way that you frame it is irrelevant. So, I mean, ideally, there's something like, a positive invitation. And we can talk about what a positive invitation is. I have a whole I guess, kind of breakdown in estrangement.com, we talk about this a lot, of just like, what are ways that share your heart? How do you share your heart with someone in a way they can hear you? So it's not about like sugarcoating things or trying to find these really like hyper psychological sounding ways of saying things with all these big words. It's not sanitizing anything, but it's I guess speaking from your values, not speaking from your hurt. That seems to be the thing that matters the most in my experience and with the group. Like, as we've seen people attempt these conversations, whether you're a parent trying to repair with your kid or a kid trying to engage your parent, speaking from your hurt almost always builds more walls. It takes a pretty self-aware and mature person to listen through someone's hurt, to try to hear the gold underneath, the experience underneath. That is a highly advanced skill set. But when we have a positive invitation that is from our values, so you have a value of being compassionate, you have a value of being patient, right? Pacing with someone, not shooting a fire hose at someone, but taking it one step at a time. You have a value of courtesy and human value. Like, you're not going to speak to them like they're an inferior or they're subhuman, right? Like, so whatever that is. So you speak from your values, you make a request. That's like an option. You can do that. That's not immature. That's not you holding on. That's not you trying to control, in my mind. I think that's the nuance perhaps that I bring to Mel's video or to what I'm reading in this article, is that yes, you cannot control, but you can make requests. But that's what they are. They're just requests. You can't make demands. Demands are out of your hurt. But a request can be aligned with your values, and in some relationships, you know, if we think of like the bell curve of experience, this section, the requests have some like, I don't know, some traction, some possibility. Obviously, in like the abuse world and neglect, like they're not, in personality disorders, they're not gonna move the needle. But here, like, there might be something. Okay, all right, fair enough. Okay, so we have like requests, but then you have boundaries. That's another thing. A boundary is not a request. A boundary doesn't make any sort of, ask of someone else's behavior. A boundary is an announcement, right? A boundary is just like, if you speak to me that way, I'm going to leave. Take your shoes off before you come in the house. That's a request. If you don't take your shoes off, I'm not going to let you in. That's a boundary, right? A boundary is not, please take your shoes off. Like, don't you see that it's important because I have young kids and so you can't track in stuff. Like, you know, like I have a 1-year-old, she's crawling around. So if you bring in muddy shoes, like all of that is like trying to explain your request. A boundary doesn't include any sort of like persuasion. It might include context, you know? So you might say something like, I don't know, like I'm setting this boundary. And the reason that I'm setting this boundary is because, well, it's important, you know, that my young kid doesn't crawl around on the floor and get mud all over their hands, or like whatever people walk all over, you know, all over their hands. So good and fine. But then, you know, the parent might be like, oh no, it's fine. Like I don't go anywhere with these shoes. There's not anything gross on these shoes. I don't even walk around. Like, because then you're not arguing. You're not trying to persuade, because then you're back in request mode. You're just kind of announcing like, oh, I get it. You may not think that taking off your shoes in the house is a big deal. Like, you do you, lady, but I'm telling you, if you walk in here with your shoes, I will stop you. I will close the door. You know, like, so that's the announcement. Here's what I'm gonna do if you don't, you know, respect this boundary. That's what a boundary is. Okay, so that's like the confrontation option. Now, here's what most of us kind of like start here, at least subtly, when it comes to adult kids with parents. And I'm actually gonna flip this also with parents in reference to adult kids, because I think that's important angle too. But let's say with the kid, there's often like little confrontations, little requests that kind of happen that we kind of pepper through in small ways. It's like, I don't know, it's like conversation openers, invitations that very subtly and indirectly to see my experience, to see my point of view, to accommodate, to come to where I'm at, to rethink something. And when kids just kind of become convinced that mom isn't really open to that, dad's kind of stuck in his ways, dad's not very open-minded to what I want to say, mom's not da-da-da-da-da. When there's just like the right word, I think, is a sentiment. When there's a sentiment of they're close-minded, then we kind of get disillusioned with this, and we might set a boundary, but we kind of like stop making requests. We stop really with the confrontations, and we pull back. Adult kids just kind of are like, hey, this isn't working. I've tried to, in subtle ways, confront you, and you haven't been responsive to that. So why am I supposed to do these big confrontations where I have these big explanations over how your behaviors hurt me or how this past hurt has really affected me? Like, you can't even handle when I ask for a vegan option at Thanksgiving dinner. You get all up in arms about that. So how am I supposed to bring up this other thing? Or you roll your eyes when I talk about this new TV show I'm into, or my new partner, or a job opportunity I'm considering. You're critical and judgmental and controlling on those things. So why would I trust that you're going to be totally open-minded and responsive to larger things or past things that hold a lot of emotional weight? You can't handle the 2 or 3 out of 10. How am I supposed to trust you with the 8 out of 10? That's I think the inner world of most adult kids when it comes to confrontations, right? So I think when it comes to confronting, we being adult kids kind of lose hope that that's possible. Okay, so then the option is just like, it's kind of what Pillemer's saying here, and Mel. It's like, It's like, well, do I just let it go? Do I just not dwell on it? Do I stop trying to control? Do I stop trying to make appeals? Do I stop trying to make requests? Just let it go. Does it work? I mean, I don't know, maybe. I still feel awful, so I still go over to Thanksgiving or whatever, and I just feel this pit in my stomach, and I feel irritated, and I feel like fizzy, like there's racing tingles all over my arms, and like everything's just rushing, or I feel numb. I feel like totally disconnected. Like I'm just trying to do this out of obligation. I'm just trying to do this because it's family and it's my parent. And so I'm going to suffer through it. I'm going to grit through it. That's what I think functionally happens. And we read articles. And why do I keep pushing the wrong button? I love Mel and Pillemer here. So I'm not calling anyone out. I'm just engaging in the public dialogue because we're in this cultural moment. And I actually want adult kids to access the wisdom that Mel and Pillemer have to offer here, but the framing of this is a boundary for a lot of kids, and so I'm trying to illuminate that and share the reason, because what happens is I'm just going to try to move on, let it go, I mean, that would be great, but I try to grit through it, and I hate it. It sucks, and and then there's this moral imperative to keep going and be a good person, and don't let these small things bother you and pull you away from your family. It's a family, and it just feels like then all the control's on them. They can behave any way they want. They can say anything they want, and I think we underestimate the toll, that it takes emotionally to just bite your tongue. And to just hold it in. And it's like every eye roll, every little comment, every little breath has a message. And then that message is stacked on top of a whole context of the relationship and how I feel seen or unseen by mom or dad, and how I felt let down or how I have felt nurtured or whatever. It's it's so easy to zoom in on the negative. But I think by suppressing it and building it, putting it down, it just gets dense. I don't think we give advice like this in any other context. In marriage therapy, do we hear psychologists telling women to just shove it down and just move on? I know your husband doesn't hear you or, share the mental load, but I mean, come on, he's doing the best he can. We don't say that. We don't say, well, I mean, everyone's always just doing the best they can at all times and always giving a full effort. No one's ever lazy or a bit selfish or, everyone's just batting 1,000. I'm just we would never tell a woman in a marriage who's discontent with her husband any of these things, but we tell adult kids these things. And we wonder why it doesn't have explanatory power. And then when they don't respond positively, we judge them and we get mad at them and we think that they're being immature and we think this is individualism and a cultural trend. And the ironic part, I actually think it is individualism. Not all of it. That's a big ingredient, though. If it's like a soup, that's the potatoes in the soup. It's like the substance and the carbs of this whole thing totally is individualism. I don't think you can look at the data anthropologically and come to any other reasonable conclusion. That's a whole other topic for another day. And that's not to invalidate anything that's happening. I don't think individualism is right or wrong, or collectivism is right or wrong. I think there are two different lenses to look about connection. Community connection, family connection, interpersonal connection. Pros and cons to both. Why am I talking about that? Okay, we're live. Hey, how's everyone doing? Are we still... Is anyone here? Yes, good. Yes, Wilson says, yeah, it's like I'm out here... I should have a scene that views the comments too, but Wilson on YouTube says, yes, I'm there. It's out of obligation and the vestige of relationship and not active living current relationship. Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, it just feels like we're there out of obligation. Yep, I see that. Okay. So we're here. So it's like grit, let it go. And then I think that there's some sort of like, we just go to like dissociation, or we go to like anger. And specifically negative sentiment override. I can get into that later, but I think negative sentiment override overtakes at that point too. Or we just associate and get numb and we just kind of suffer through it. This is what boomers did. I'm telling you, like I talked to like anyone that was born before 1980. They are there for their parents. And what I see, so many of them, I think, had harder childhoods than many of the millennials that are taking issue with it. And that's not to rank trauma. Don't hear me say that. I'm just saying that, like, I don't know, like, have you heard the stories? Like, I'll tell you in my family, it's like my grandfather was beaten by his dad with a switch, and then my dad was spanked with a belt pretty relentlessly. And then I was spanked with a belt more moderately. And then I don't spank my kids. So it's like, there's like this progression generationally of each generation trying to like come into a greater awareness and kind of open up to like, oh, whoa, okay, my parents didn't, man, when I should say it this way, when I experienced this from my parents, I didn't like that. I don't want to do that with my parents. And so it's like we do have judgments against our parents, all of us do. How we hold them, how front of mind we hold them, I guess is up for discussion. I'll get to this later. I feel like that's a whole tunnel that we could spend a whole hour on, but that's not what I want to spend the majority of my time talking about. But we will talk about it. Okay, dissociation. There's dissociation. Generationally, I feel like we hold that different. Okay, whatever. So let me talk about the alternative, because I think that it's like, okay, so what do? We try to let it go, but that just turns into like this, turns into IBS. Look at this little apple. Do you see this? Look at this. In the chat. Is this a small apple or am I a giant man? And we're back. Okay. So we talked about in my mind what like the healthy alternative is on the behavior side, because we have requests and boundaries, right? Man, terrible handwriting. Oh, you're not even looking at it. My bad, team. Okay, we have boundaries, we have requests. And you can give positive invitations. There's a point where people aren't responding to that invitation. Okay, yeah, you can't control. You shouldn't hold that. You shouldn't walk on eggshells trying to essentially manipulate them passively. I mean, the whole people-pleasing, parentified child thing, of course, is a dysfunction in trying to, like, optimize the invitation to essentially control the outcome of your parent. Okay, no good. But what about the let go? There's a thread of wisdom here, and that is that you have the option to cut off. Let's say this. You have the option to cut off or pull back. Let's do pull back. That's less extreme. You have that option. And that is really heralded, I think, as the like elevated, mature, protect your peace, mentally ascended option right now. Like I just see TikTok after TikTok being like, yeah, that if you're going to stand up for yourself, if you're going to have some self-respect, I mean, you can pull back and you can cut off. That's fine. You go. And I would just say another equally valid option. This is how I'd frame it. Tell me what you think of this in the chat. Is you can consent to being in the relationship with the presence of the negative behavior. That's an option. Mom's critical. All right. I can consent to being there knowing that she will be critical. So that means instead of me resenting it, instead of me resisting it, I know that comes with the package, and so I am entering an agreement not to be the recipient of abuse, not to be the recipient of violence, certainly, but to be the recipient of a degree of unhealth from her side, because the positives outweigh the negatives, because I do want her in my life. I want my kids to have a relationship with her. I'm not saying everyone should take this option, by the way. Don't hear me as like guilting you or saying this is what you should do. I think in order for this to be compelling, in order for us to move the needle in the cultural conversation, these almost need to be somewhat morally neutral. Because I think that we need to have an equal treatment to say you're allowed to pull back and you're allowed to consent, because both are preposterous. And here's what I mean by preposterous, is like, you can argue with both of them and say that they're outrageous. What? Pull back? They're your family. All the arguments we're all so familiar with. What do you mean? You're gonna pull back and just cut them off? Like, they raised you. Aren't you grateful at all? Okay, yeah. All the arguments. And it's outrageous to say you could just consent to being in the relationship, because it's like, what? You're gonna like give access, to you, to your kids, whatever, your family. You're gonna expend the emotional labor in this unreciprocal, unhealthy, whatever, on purpose? That makes no sense. And I would plant my flag on correct. But you're allowed to if you want to. I'm not going to make the argument that you should. I'm just saying it's okay if you want to. And then you're like, well, why would I want to? I mean, that's a valid question. Why would I want to? Why would I want to? Here's why I think you might want to. I'm gonna adjust our figure. Let's say this is mom and this is son. It feels like there's this gravitational pull. It feels like there's this impossible draw into the dysfunction, into the hurt, so the side comments, the behavior, right? It's like this, or just the memory and the weight of the past hurt. It's like, I feel like so much of the emotional labor, so much of the exhaustion that comes from remaining in the family relationship with the presence of all the hurt or the dysfunction of behavior, the exhaustion, the body stuff, like the upset stomach, the fizzy hands, arms, neck, the blood pressure spike, all of that, I think, has so much to do with what we're holding. Like you could think, I don't know. Well, okay, I'll just say it this way. This gravitational pull, I think so much of this are our personal unmet needs. Our unmet needs emotionally. Because you can think, why does mom's criticism bother you? It bothers me because I want her to see me. I want her to approve. I want her to see how hard this has been, and I want her to just see how this has been like, what this has been like, and to see what I've overcome, and to see how I've pressed through it, and I feel like when she criticizes me, all she can see is the negative. All she can see is what's not good enough, and it pains me because there's a longing, I long for the positive alternative. I long for the connection, the approval, the validation. You know, like why does dad, you know, always asking questions about my career and money, and why does that bother me? Because I want him to see me as a competent adult. I want him to be proud of me. I want him to trust me with my decisions in my life and my choices. You know? So there's an unmet need. There's like a desire there that I think fuels all of this fuzzy, hard, negative energy between us. I don't think it's all that. Like, don't hear me say that, like, because I think that there's also just emotional labor in being around people who are unhealthy. Like, you know what it's like to be around people who are unhealthy, and it's fatiguing, even though you have no desires from them, like emotionally. Like that coworker at work that just drives you nuts. It's not like you have some secret desire that they emotionally validate you. You just find them annoying, you know? Okay, so like obviously there's some of that, but I'd say a vast majority of it is the unmet needs. And so my theory is like, okay, well, what if you healed that? You know, what if you healed that hurt, that pain through something like therapy, through something like spreading your emotional needs and dispersing them around the mature relationships in your life, your friendships, your partnership, your dog, I don't know, like where you feel seen and validated and heard in many different areas of your life. How would that change how you experience your mom or your dad? And what would it be like to not let go of being affected by them or let go of like your expectations? I would be more specific. It's like, how do I let go of the hope that they're going to meet those needs and wake up one day? And am I willing to wait for them to meet my needs and allow those needs to go unmet in the meantime? It's like if you went over for dinner. Let's say that. You know, you went over for dinner and they didn't serve water. So you're thirsty. And you ask for water and they're like, what? You don't need water. Stop being so sensitive. You know, like, who needs water? My gosh. And that could be analogous to, like, I don't know, your creativity that was underappreciated, your emotions that went unvalidated, your experience that went unacknowledged that was really traumatic that no one in the family was willing to acknowledge or say was true. Okay, whatever. So they're not filling your water cup. An option is to not go over there because they don't give you water. That is an option. Another option is to go over there and bring your own water. And then you can enjoy the pot pie or whatever they made for dinner, and instead of depending on them for water, you bring your own. And you could say, well, why would you go over to someone's house that doesn't serve you water? And it's like, well, yeah, you certainly don't have to, I guess, but that is an option if you want to. Don't have to. If we say that you should, if we say that you have to, if we say that it's like morally superior to do that, then we're putting this back in the territory of guilt and obligation. And I just don't know if intimacy can be built when guilt is at the core of it. I just think that if you want to repair from hurt, it has to come from a deeper place in your values than just concern over them feeling like you're not fulfilling an obligation. Like, I'm not saying that obligations are irrelevant or duties are irrelevant. There seems like a better place to build it is upon someone's choice and their own values. I'm going to bring water over on my own. That's an option. And so then, okay, well, what about the exhaustion? I think a lot of the exhaustion, honestly, is you trying to like hold back and regulate and deal with all of the disappointment that you feel that they're not serving you water. But when there's kind of like you take a step back and you're like, okay, let me just kind of like try to look at this objectively. Oh wait, they're not drinking water either. I just don't know if they have water in this household. Okay. So it's not that they're maybe personally trying to deprive me of water. They might just not have water. You know, so it's not just that mom is shaming my body. She shames her own body. she's hypercritical of her own, the weight, the cellulite, the wrinkles, whatever. And she's also critical of mine. And then she puts my sister up on this pedestal as being perfect because her body meets her standards. And that's probably a weird connection that they have, that idealistic shadow projection, yada, 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 that she has with my sister. So maybe it's less that she approves of my sister, disapproves of me, and it's more that she's projecting some internal thing in her own psyche. She doesn't have water. Okay. Can I bring my own water? Maybe. Maybe I should stop expecting to get water. But this is where we get back into this territory that we're all the way full circle. Look at us. And we're coming close to the end. We're back at Mel. It's like, hey, well, they're doing the best they can. They don't have water. And let me just zoom up on that piece just a little bit more, and then we'll let it be, and we'll move on. But I think that we have this hope and expectation and desire. Let's say like a scale of 1 out of 10. Let's take the body shaming thing. Okay, so like a 1 is that she's critical of my body. Like, she's really critical. And she shames me in front of other people. She makes comments. She comments on social media about how I shouldn't wear those shorts, whatever. Okay, so she's critical. 10 is like completely accepting, affirming, and even like walks me through how to view my own body in light of the societal messages that I grew up with, and like helps me metabolize that and process through that and come to a very grounded self-esteem that isn't, yada, yada, yada. Okay, you get it. So we have a desire that they're at a 10. They're at a 1. I think that the phrase of like, well, they don't have water. Well, they're doing the best they can. That sounds like we're saying is like, well, 1 is all they're capable of. 1 is all they have access to. But I call this the ABCs of conflict. I don't know, ABCs of something. So it's like, okay, when someone confronts you on something, you have a few different options here. You can avoid it. So your mom is critical about the body. Daughter responds negatively. Daughter is like, that, I don't like that. That's pretty rough. Mom, you're making me feel terrible. I don't know. Mom can avoid it and just be like, and just kind of push it off. She could also blame. She can say like, well, if you just drop a little bit of weight, then, you wouldn't be da-da-da-da-da. Well, you wouldn't feel so this or that if you just exercise or eat a little less or whatever. So there's like these blame statements. I can avoid it, I can blame, or I can pay attention to the experience, to the emotion, to the felt experience of this interaction, and I can get curious. When I tell my daughter, don't wear those shorts, you don't have the body type for it, she gets small inside. I can see it. I can see the light fade out of her eyes. I can see her hunch over. I see her skin get pale. That makes me feel awful. I'm trying to help her. I'm speaking from the mom's point of view. I'm trying to help her because I know that I want her to be accepted. I want her to find connection. I want her to find whatever, da-da-da-da-da. And from my paradigm, matching the beauty standard is how you secure connection. Let's say that. Okay. Maybe she wouldn't say it exactly like that, but generally. But this doesn't feel right. If I have a paradigm for it up here, it makes sense up here, but it doesn't feel right here. I can get curious about that. Just curious. And it's not like we have the expectation that they need to go read 20 parenting books that they didn't, have access to. That they needed to parent in the way that we'd parent. Like, I think that a lot of parents feel the burden of that. It's like, wow, your expectations just seem to be up here, when it's like no one thought that way back then. And I think what I'm saying is, like, I don't think it's reasonable to expect that your mom should have been a 10 or your dad should have been a 10. You're right. Maybe they don't have water. Like, they didn't have access to that. That's not within their capacity. But what I'm saying is that every human, I put the blanket statement, every human has the ability to go from 1 to 2. 2 to 3. And I think the way that we go from 1 to 2, or 1 to 3, is curiosity. It's just the open question of, this doesn't feel right, I'm going to try to press in a little more and try to understand. And I think we know this because of like my example earlier. It's like, okay, my grandfather was hit with a stick. My dad was hit with a belt. I was hit with a belt more moderately. I don't hit my kid. It's like there's a progression of curiosity over like, this didn't sit right with me. I'm going to try to do something about it. And even if it's an imperfect attempt at trying to make a correction, even if it's a partial correction, I don't know, my grandpa grew up like spankings for him resulted in blood. And that didn't sit right with him. And so he's trying to improve upon that, but he's also living within the worldview that that's how you discipline kids. And so he tried to make an improvement on it. It really hurt my dad. My dad's talked to me about it. And so then he tried to make an improvement upon it too. And I think that it makes sense to me to, rather than to hold parents to these high expectations, to not settle for no expectations, but to place expectations within reality that I needed you to be curious. I needed you to ask the question. I needed you to respond to that feeling that something wasn't right. Well, you were quiet. I didn't know. I needed you to ask questions. I didn't know what was going on in your head. I just needed you to sit with me and help and keep trying to figure it out. Well, I'm not a mind reader. I didn't need you to read my mind. I just needed you to not give up, to not avoid, to not blame, to stay in the tension, to stay in the ambiguity. For me. And so when we're making a request as adults, we're not asking for perfect behavior, we're asking for curiosity. And we can feel superior because maybe you're resourced in a way they weren't. You ran into these ideas younger and earlier than they did. Congrats, that's great. Do you see the middle ground here? What are you thinking in the chat? What comes up for you? Mandy says, I hear what you're saying, that parents should have curiosity. But what if we did, and the adult kid doesn't? And we have nothing to work with? What about for the parents who did those things? I think that kids don't have a very good understanding of what I just laid out either. That's a very general statement, but that's just anecdotally what I see. It's just like, okay, so this like 1 to 10 thing. Why am I drawing so far to the left? Good grief. Okay, so this 1 to 10 thing. I think a lot of kids feel like, well, my pain wouldn't have happened if they were just here. And they were here, and that hurt. And I think that what a lot of kids fail to realize is like, well, hold on, no, like, maybe their childhood was here. And they've actually made some pretty big steps. And a lot of those steps were under the surface that you couldn't see. It's not like, parents kept active case notes throughout the childhood that you can go back and review and you can see their indecision and their questions. And so I think the adult kid has the burden of being like, I wonder if there's this world beneath the surface that I haven't been paying attention to. And I wonder if asking for a 3 is a better starting point than asking for a 10. Now, let me balance this out a little bit because there's a piece here that we haven't fully zoomed up on. There's a lot of grief in accepting a 3. Because the pain still happened. It's not like the pain goes away because mom has a good reason. Does that make sense? It's like let's say that there was a parent that fed her kids rice and vegetables every single meal. What would happen? you would have a kid with malnourishment because we need protein to survive, right? You need fish and chicken and beans, I don't know, whatever. So what would happen is you would have mental fog and maybe even like bone density issues or I don't know, sleep issues. You would have all sorts of these physical issues. And then, mom could say, it's like, well, hold on, I didn't have fish. I didn't know back then we didn't eat fish. I have had all those issues. I have sleep issues and I have bone density issues. Like what? This is all I can. And so then it's like, well, adult kid, come on, don't get mad at your mom. Like she didn't know. But then adult kids over here is like, but I still have bone issues. I still have malnourishment. I still have vitamins deficiencies. I'm still dealing with all this. And the mom's like, stop complaining. You're being too sensitive. Listen, my mom never served me fish. You don't hear me complaining about it. And it's like, you're missing the issue. The issue is like, I'm in pain over here. This hurts. And so what I'm saying maybe on this live, to sum up, we only have a couple minutes left, is like, you need to go get some protein. You need to go nourish your heart. And maybe your mom's the wrong place to look for it. And in your nourishment, you can then decide if you want to share a meal with mom of rice and vegetables. And it makes sense that you're mad and you're frustrated that you have all these health issues now because there was no protein. And you deserve that validation. That matters. You can try to send invitations for your mom to realize that. She may or may not. And then your decision is to not go over for dinner or to bring your own. And that includes a lot of grief because it's not fair. And I think this whole conversation culturally would soften up so much if there was acknowledgement from the parents saying, yeah, it's not fair, you're right. You needed that. Because of my limitations and experience, I didn't have that, but that doesn't change the fact that there was damage done. I can't go into the past and fix it, but I can acknowledge it and pay attention to what that means for you. And on the kids, if we can acknowledge that they were human. They were limited. And much of the nutritional deficiencies we're angry at them for are often deficiencies they're struggling with too. Whether they admit it or not. Whether it looks like yours or not. Because we have different personalities, different temperaments, so it shows up in different ways. And in the invitations we are extending to be more patient, practical, realistic in the gradual process of change that every human goes through. But what if they're not responding? Yeah, fair enough. If they deny your requests, it makes sense to set boundaries. If they disregard your boundaries, it makes sense to pull back. And you're allowed to do that even if you just want to. Can you see how what I'm saying here, I don't know. I don't know anyone who agrees with what I'm saying here. I hope they do. Maybe they do. Maybe that's me underestimating people, but this nuance in between these roads, it's hard. Mandy, let me readdress what you said, just because I kind of got tangentially, I got off. You asked, well, what about when the adult kids are angry and they won't respond and they don't see the good things you've done? You do the same things the kids do. Here's the big aha moment, is you do what I'm telling the kids to do when the parent is refusing to acknowledge, is just like stuck. They're in the ABCs. They're in the A, avoid, or they're in the B, which is blame. If the kid's in the A and the B, what do? You grieve. I send a request for them to see me. They deny the request. I grieve. I try to send a more nuanced request. They deny that too. I grieve. What is grief? My definition for grief is responding authentically to reality Some days your grief looks like anger. It's not fair. This is so not fair. After everything I've sacrificed and done, for you to just cut me out and not even be open to conversation, to hear me, to see any of my limitations or trauma I went through. Anger. Fine. Sadness. Disassociated, numb, spirally flat, depression, like the whole thing. We grieve. And then we heal our hurt. And those of you who are familiar with my work, you know that I run an estrangement group with parents and adult kids. I'll walk through what the model that I kind of teach here is like, what do we do in these moments when everything just feels totally like I don't know what to do? We notice our cycle. I think the first thing that actually brings a lot of peace. Here, I'll put this. The first thing that we do that brings a lot of peace is we actually just sit back and we try to kind of zoom out and we notice this isn't just a problem with them or a problem with me. This is a cycle. There's a dance that we're stepping on each other's feet. And it would be easy to say they're a bad dancer, I'm a bad dancer, but what if we kind of zoom out and we pay attention to what's the cycle we're getting stuck in? And I think the cycle has a lot of different components. I think that you could think about it within terms of personality. So in estrangement.com, we have a full breakdown of the Big Five personality model, and I kind of show how these conflicts happen along the edges of personality. So for example, people who are like free spirits, feelers, people who are more conscientious, ambitious, concrete thinkers. I mean, imagine you have like a very ambitious, conscientious mom raising a very free-spirited daughter. It'd be really easy for the mom to kind of interpret the daughter's behavior as lazy or, I don't know, as them being flighty or inconsistent or disorganized. I think we moralize the dimensions of our personalities that conflict. Likewise, I think that if you had a very concrete, sturdy, organized kid, and then you had like a free spirit mom, it's easy to feel like, well, she was inconsistent. She got me to school late. She showed up for things late. She didn't make payments. She dated a bunch of random people, and it was really overwhelming to have this rotating door. And it's like, okay, yes, there's moral elements in there, and some of that, not all of it, but some of it is personality. And we very quickly moralize the dimensions of the personality without creating the acceptance that, well, there's different kinds of people in the world, and you don't get to pick who your parents are or who your kids are. Okay, good. Culture. I don't see this being talked about anywhere except Josh Coleman. I think Josh Coleman is brilliant in his breakdown of individualism and the impact of individualism on the generational difference between how people are navigating the world culturally. The only addition that I would put on Coleman's paradigm, if you're not familiar with it, it's okay. He's essentially saying that as the generations are moving along, we're getting more and more individualistic. And I would just push, not back, just a little maybe asterisk, is that I actually think younger generations are actually becoming increasingly collectivistic in certain ways. I'm curious what you all think about this. Maybe in the chat, this is a little bit of an intellectual tangent, but it's like, I see younger generations not being nearly as concerned with meritocracy. Meritocracy meaning like survival of the fittest, being the best of the best, cutting out the competitiveness of wanting to be number one. I see a lot of younger generations a lot more concerned with equity and inclusion and quality of life, but not at the expense of the community. And the way they hold that, I think, is just different. I see younger generations also really, I think, putting a lot of stock in their friend groups, but their friend groups are very, how do I put it? There's a different kind of bondedness. There's a different kind of communication. Like, I think it's so, like, an example of it is, like, so much of the Gen Z crowd has a different way of talking, and there's so much slang and internet slang that is used just in common speech, and so it can feel like especially when you're talking to a young Gen Z, it's like, what are you saying? Like half your vocabulary, I have no idea what's going on. And that's because I think younger generations build online communities particularly that have shared meaning and shared memes that express the internal world. And I think that has positives and negatives, as Jonathan Haidt is illuminating. But I think that Gen Z has a very communal, almost, it's like they grew up on the internet and they see it for what it is. And I see a huge push within younger generations to push against the internet as what's the right word? A copy? What's the right word? Why am I looking? This is how you know it's live. Copy, supplant, copy, fake. What's the word? Fake, counterfeit. Thank you. As a counterfeit form of connection, I think that the algorithm feels like connection, but it isn't. And I think that younger generations are figuring that out. And there's going to be there's going to be a correction that's going to come from them. That doesn't. And so there's going to be almost a correction of some of these individualistic pieces. So meritocracy is not as big of a deal. There's social connection that's different. Okay, we can go deeper into that another time. I'm getting tangential. So within estrangement.com, we spent a lot of time talking about noticing my cycle, the personality things that are at play, the cultural dynamics, communication dynamics that are at play. I'm releasing a deep dive soon on low context versus high context, direct negative feedback versus indirect negative feedback. Some really cool studies from anthropologists. I'm actually pulling a lot of data out of China to make a case for actually different generational interaction patterns in America. It's a whole thing. It's cool. I think this is why it's helpful is it's like, oh, I'm saying one thing, but they're hearing another. That's ultimately what Notice My Cycle is you don't want to trip over your words. Like you want to be able to share your heart. You don't want things to get lost in translation. So that's important. Notice My Cycle, the next stage. And by the way, all those modules and all that content is available on estrangement.com. You can go there now. We're open for just the month of December. It's a closed membership typically. Parents and adult kids are welcome. It's a monthly thing that you can sign up and you can be there and get access to all the different modules of my teaching on this. If any of this is resonating with you, that's where this stuff is. Notice My Cycle. The next stage is Heal My Hurt. And I mean, for the reasons that I was explaining earlier, it's like so much of the draw into the dysfunction, so much of the anxiety and rumination has less to do just with their behavior and has so much to do with my hurt that I'm holding. And what if we could get down to a place of healing and grounded stability and peace? Like, what would it look like to approach this relationship from a place of peace, not to approach the relationship to try to get back to a place of peace? That's the framework that we sit in. Heal My Hurt. I'm trained as a trauma therapist. That's my training. So that's kind of my wheelhouse, is how to heal the hurt stuff. I'm not trained as a family therapist. All my training's in trauma, so I'm kind of approaching this as an outsider, but that's the next stage. Third stage. Own my part. Own my needs. Taking accountability and acknowledgement for what I've done in this, and then also owning what I actually need in the relationship for it to be healthy. I can't have the presence of constant criticism, buying expensive things for my kids without checking with me first, coming over unannounced, and expecting to be over for dinner and to take over a whole evening. I can't, on the parent side, I can't have a kid screaming at me, telling me how awful I am, and then verbally abusing me or taking advantage of me financially, zooming in for financial help or, support with kids, and then disconnecting and not talking to me for months. Like, obviously, there's lots of needs that are valid for the parent and the kid, and everyone has a part to own, even the kid. Even if I'm not saying that's equal. But as an adult, you're in a reciprocal eye-level relationship with your parents as an adult. As a kid, there was a power structure at play that makes it so that responsibility is not even. It's very much responsibilities on the parent. The kid can't consent. The kid's not fully developed. But as an adult, that's different. So there is responsibility that we have to take for the injuries we've added to a relationship as an adult, right? Even if I haven't spoken up about how I really feel. I've let things go on far longer than they should have. At least that, right? Okay, on my part. And then next is reach out. But from after doing all this, I just feel like our attempts to reach out, our attempts to make requests, our attempts to have meaningful conversation often don't happen with this as the foundation. And so that's why they're failing. It's because we're doing it from our hurt. We're doing it without noticing our cycle. We're doing it without owning our part, just seeing their part. We don't have a very concrete understanding of our needs. We just feel it, but we don't know how to explain it or communicate it. And so we reach out and then it doesn't work and then we feel hopeless. But so many parents in our group, we've been doing this group for about a year now. And what's so cool is the past several months in particular, dozens and dozens of stories each week of like, I've reconnected with my kid for the first time. I had a conversation with my kid for the first time. We're in counseling for the first time. Like, because they responded to my letter. We have this thing called a reach out letter where it's just, you kind of break down. I have a template, a format that was designed by adult kids of like essentially what adult kids wish their parents would write them, you know? And then, and I break down a similar letter for adult kids that want to both set a boundary with a parent or make a request of their parent. And so we have these templates, and what's so cool is they work. They work in the sense that you have a different chemical reaction because you are of a different substance, you know, because you've gone through this transformation process. Your reach out is qualitatively different. There's no guarantees here. Don't hear me say that like, oh, if you only do my program, then everything would work. Obviously that's not true, or I can't make those sorts of statements. I'm just saying that theoretically, I mean, it just makes deductive sense that if you come to the table as a different substance, you can expect there's a different reaction. Now, some people are so shut off to any sort of communication, they're not even going to check to see what kind of substance you are. Obviously, you can stay stuck in those moments, but what else is there? If we just give up hope, we just think, well, my kid's a narcissist, or they just are selfish and don't care. It's like, okay, try that on for a couple years and see how that sits with you. My guess is that widens the gaping wound in your heart. To think like that and to ruminate in that way. I'm not even saying it's false. I'm just saying, like, how's that been? Are you willing to try something different? Well, I've tried therapy before. Yeah, therapists are like plumbers. There's good ones and bad ones. Some of them help, some of them flood your house and make everything worse. I don't know, man. I've been to like 6 different therapists, and I've liked one of them. I don't know. I don't know, maybe I'm a hard case, but I'm like, that's like saying I've tried reading. I don't like books. And it's like, well, dang it, there's a lot of different kind of books and a lot of different kind of authors. Maybe you should try something new. And it's like, well, I don't have the time. And I'm like, you don't have the time. What are you doing? You just, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, family's the most important thing. I'd do anything for family. And then it's like, oh, well, I don't have time. The membership, it's $40 a month. Oh, that's too much money. It's like $40 a month. One therapy session is 3 times that. I don't know. Whatever. Okay, reach out. And then in light of this, the end goal that we have at estrangement.com is not reconciliation, actually. And it's not, I don't know, setting better boundaries or something. It's something different. Peace with what's possible. I don't know what's possible in your family relationship. You might go through all these steps and go through all this personal transformation, and then you send a reach out to your kid, and they will not talk to you, even though you've worded things perfect. I want you to experience peace, even though full reconciliation is not possible. I want you to feel the satisfaction of, I've really done what I could. I really went there. It wasn't just me being defensive. I don't feel guarded. I don't feel angry. I don't feel tense. I feel relaxed. Oh, I feel warmth towards them in my grief. I don't feel guilt and shame like I'm this big awful parent, because I've healed that. I've healed my hurt. I've gone through the self-forgiveness. We have a whole module on self-forgiveness and guilt, worksheets, exercises. Done that. So I feel peace. Adult kids, maybe you go through all this and you decide you don't want to send a reach out letter. That's fine. We don't, like, it's not mandatory that you send a reach out letter. I think for a lot of kids, they go through all this and they realize, you know what? It's actually not possible. And to continue to make requests is only to open myself up to more pain and emotional mistreatment. And so I'm skipping right down to peace with what's possible. And that's great. And I think that's fine. No judgment. I don't think that's a subpar option. I think that I also hold an open, this is a really hard part of the whole group too, is I'm always pushing people to make decisions for now. Meaning, I don't think my kid's going to reach out to me. I don't think they're going to talk to me. I think they've pulled back permanently. And then I'm like, okay. I was like, well, I'm just going to accept that I have to move on in the relationship. I have to accept that I'm not going to see them for Christmas and da-da-da-da. I'm like, great, yep. You're going to accept that they're not talking to you for now. Because maybe they will later. You don't know. If they're alive, there's a maybe. Well, it's been 20 years, Matthias. I've seen people reconciled after 20 years. More than once. I don't know. You don't know. We don't have access to the future. So it feels like what we want to do is we want to put a closed loop. We want closure. So we want to be like, my parent is hopeless. I want the affirmation that they are a narcissist so I can close the loop. And I don't have to think about it anymore. And so I'm very irritating in that I'm like, sure, close the loop for a year. Close the loop for 3 years. Keep an open mind. Reassess when you feel like it. Not because you should, not because that's what you owe them, but just because you might want to later. You don't know what's happened in the years that you haven't spoken to them. Well, no, they're stuck in their ways. Maybe they joined estrangement.com. Hey, maybe they've been working on noticing their cycle. Well, not my mom. Yeah, well, check in and find out. And then if not, good and fine. Close the door again. You don't even have to check in directly. Ask your brother. Ask your sister. Ask their pastor. I don't know, whatever. You don't have to. But we close the loop out of our hurt most often because it hurts to keep it open. And there's this idea of like, well, if I'm holding out hope that they might change, that's me like not accepting it. It's like we kind of think of like holding hope like we're holding onto a pull-up bar. Like it's like it involves all this effort. Like we're just like we're just trying to hold on. And what if it was less like a pull-up bar and just more like I'm going to keep the porch light on? So if they come to the door, I'm open to coming to the door. I'm not saying I'm open to letting them in, but I'll keep the porch light on. For kids that are holding boundaries, that's probably not the right analogy. Maybe it's something like, I'm open to the idea that I will be in a season of my life where I'm open-minded to checking in and seeing what's new. It's a big maybe. We don't know the future. We don't know whatever. I'm not saying I have to. I'm not saying I should. I'm not saying that once I'm evolved enough and a good enough person and healed enough, then I'll want to. I don't believe any of that. I just think that, like, you don't know. You know what really sped along my estrangement with my dad was having my third kid. And just the idea of, like, he's never met her. He's met my other two kids before I cut him off. But I'm like, he's never met her. My grandpa's getting older. What happens when he passes away? Am I going to want to see him then? I don't know. Maybe. You know, it's like those are the thoughts that I reflected on. You might have a change of heart. Have peace with what's possible for now and keep an open mind for what's coming down the road. Who knows? So that's what we do. As we walk through those steps and then we go through them again. 5 steps. Notice my cycle, heal my hurt, own my part and my needs. I reach out if that feels right. And then ultimately peace with what's possible. And it does come. We have tons of people in the group that do. And one last thing I'll say about the group and then we'll close up is like, It's parents and adult kids, and I don't know anywhere else that does that. Karl Pillemer, the one who wrote this article, said in his book, I don't know of any online space that has both parents and adult kids. It seems to be echo chambers of kids, in their groups, or parents in their groups. And my idea, reading that, Pillemer, you were the reason that I decided to do this, was like, oh, I'm going to do a group with both. And that was really hard. It's been hard. It's been explosive. It's really hard marketing wise because it's like totally different. It's a totally different, I don't know. The problems are experienced so uniquely, and the pressure or pain points are so different. And so building a world that is hospitable and useful and helpful and welcoming and peaceful for both groups was a challenge. But over the past year, we've done it, and it's beautiful. And it's only open a couple times a year, and you're in a window right now where it's open, just around the holidays, and then it will close up, and you'll go to estrangement.com, and it'll be closed, and you'll have to get on the wait list to get in for the next opening, but it's open right now. So 30-day money-back guarantee it sounds too cliche to say. I don't even think you can say it without it sounding weird, but essentially saying if you get in there, you watch some videos, you see the community, you don't like it, I'll give you your money back. You're not even on the hook for the first $40. Like, I'll return it. I don't have anything to lose. I don't have anything to hide. There's no gotcha moments in my mind. I'm like, you're going to get in there and you're going to realize this is really helpful or it's not. You're going to realize, like, this is going to confront me and actually ask me to move in towards my hurt and to heal. It's going to ask me to not change my perspective in the sense of invalidating my pain, but open up the places I'm actively avoiding because I know it hurts in there and I know it's confusing in there. I'm going to push you into the ambiguities. And ask you to make value-laden decisions within those ambiguities. I'm going to ask you to learn. I'm not going to ask you to blame yourself and make it all you, like it's all my fault. And I'm not taking you on a journey for you to realize that it's you, and if only you change, then da-da-da-da. Like, that's all simplistic. It's both. It's more nuanced than that. So we have feedback sessions where I actually get on live calls with people within the group, and we bring someone on for like 10-20 minutes, and we get to hear their story of what's going on. We have a parent and then a kid on every single time, so an adult kid and then a parent, and it's not therapy, it's not counseling or anything, it's just feedback. But it's like you'll have a kid just talk about their anger and frustration and their mom's toxic behavior, and then you'll have like a mom come on talking about their kid being shut down and them being totally shut off. Like, and what's funny is, like, on the surface, you're like, oh yeah, I've heard this before. But then you get underneath and it's like you see the kid's grief. And you as a parent, you're watching and you're like, it just seems like a bunch of selfishness and entitlement to me. But then you watch this girl on the call and she's in tears and she talks about how she misses her mom and how this has been so painful for her. And how she holds anger, but she also just has all this longing in her heart for things to be better. And then you think, I wonder if my daughter feels some of those things. And it helps you see her as more of a human. Same thing with mom. You have mom with all these defensive things, and you have parents in the group. Some are really mature, some are on the immature side. And it's just like, you have parents who don't think it's their fault at all, and it was just their kids. And I'm pretty quick to, like, I don't know, confront that pretty directly and then get to the heart of the matter. And not to blame them, but to open their eyes to the reality of the circumstance. And then you watch them tear up, and you watch some of the walls come down and the masks come down, and you see that there's grief under that too. And I think as a parent, it's really easy to feel, as a kid, you feel like, oh, well, my mom and dad, they're just kind of like lost in their ways. It's out of sight, out of their mind. They just kind of dissociate. They just think they're right. And it's like, oh, everything is held together with fear. And it's weird how mom will say things to a group of strangers on a coaching call with me that are hard to say to the kid directly. And you're watching this lady that kind of reminds you of your mom or your dad. There's lots of dads in the group too. And you're like, that kind of reminds me of my mom. And then you hear her talk about how much, not just that she misses her daughter like in an obligation-y, guilty kind of way, but just in a tender, warm, sweet way. And you're like, oh, I wonder if my mom feels some of that. And it's not like it makes everything better. It actually makes everything more complicated because it's like, yeah, but it's closer to the reality, you know? It's like, if I'm going to make a decision about what to do with this relationship, I want to make a decision with reality in front of me, objectively, with the full range. I don't want a hard heart. I don't want to make this decision from hurt. I want to make this decision from my values, from a place of peace, taking into account the good and the bad, my hurt and their effort, their limitations and the places they abdicated their responsibilities. So, you have an invitation to join that. An invitation to join that journey at estrangement.com. It's not going to be open for very long, but if you want to jump in, it opened up today. And I really recommend you join. It's an incredible group of people. You have, just like these rock solid parents and kids that have been there for the past year that will hold your hand through the process of walking into heavy territory, that have done this work, that have done the healing work, that have noticed the cycles, that are familiar with these pieces and will support you. There's a forum where you can talk to parents and adult kids. You can get feedback. You can hear people's stories. You can explain your story. You can get feedback from a bunch of adult kids on what's going on. You can write a letter to your adult kid and have a bunch of adult kids give feedback on your letter. Likewise, you can explain your situation, and then parents can come on and share not just like the ways you need to change or what your parents' perspective really is or how you should be more understanding, but just to empathize with you. I had this beautiful story once with a adult kid in our group. She's lovely. You're gonna get to meet her. She's pretty active on the page. Her name is Christine. I'll say her name. Her name is Christine, and then she meets with. She had this meeting with Christy, another mom in the group, and like a bunch of them jumped on a Zoom call, and I was a little nervous because I didn't facilitate the Zoom call, so I'm like, okay, people in the group are hopping on Zoom calls, like adult kids and parents talking to each other. I hope that goes well. Like, I don't know, like I don't have any control over that, but I heard post after. It was like, I explained my circumstance to Christy, the kid explaining to the mom, a different mom. And just to see her eyes just kind of water up, and for her to see me and for her to just be like, I'm so sorry that happened to you. This is so hard. No one should have to go through that. I'm so sorry. It was like to experience that validation from someone my mom's age, someone in my mom's position, someone who knows what it's like to be estranged. To feel that from her was just so healing. I don't know how to explain it. It's like, it just meant a lot, because, everyone online can say, well, you're valid for prioritizing your needs. And, other people who aren't in that situation can be like, oh, yeah, well, you're doing what you have to do. And it's like, okay, fine. But someone who gets it, like someone looking across the aisle at you and being like, I know what it's like. I'm in the hurt. And what you're feeling is okay. That is like, like water on your soul, like just fresh air. That's the stuff that you can't get in a course. It's the stuff you can't get in a book. It's the stuff you can't get from a podcast, even from this. So, yeah, I think what's cool about estrangement.com is the community. And I don't know of any other community online that has both parents and adult kids centered around estrangement. There wasn't when I started. I don't know if others have started since then, but it's the most beautiful thing I've been a part of. If you've followed my work for a while, you know that I've done lots of trauma courses. I travel around. I speak. It's a joy. The thing I look forward to more than anything is getting to speak and be on calls with people in estrangement.com. It's my people. All right, you should join. You should come. A little announcement too. Okay, we're nearing the end. I'm only 30 minutes over. Good. Something to know? What was I gonna say? Oh, I'm doing this twice a week now. I'm doing lives every Tuesday and Thursday through the month of December and the first week of January. on family conflict and estrangement. So put it in your calendar, 10 a.m. Central on Tuesdays and 1 p.m. on Thursdays. Yep. 1 p.m. Thursday Central, 10 p.m. or 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Tuesdays Central. I'll be here every week. And this is the beginning, I think, of a new wave of interaction with me online. A new how do I put? I haven't prepared how I'm gonna say this, but here's what I've been feeling. I'll go into it. I'll say it. We're in a world where AI is about to just bring a tidal wave of slop into short form content. Like it's with Sora and all the advancements. I don't know if you've noticed, but the main medium that therapists have been using to communicate, whether it's Instagram or TikTok or whatever, are those little quote tiles, with a little inspirational quote over a pastel background with some Canva graphics, whatever. Yeah, those little quotes, and then you have short form videos, which you've probably, if you are familiar with me, you've probably grown accustomed to seeing that in my work. So, good. AI, just ChatGPT is the inflation. That's a good analogy for it. The inflation of ChatGPT info has rendered those little tiles very, very low. What's the right word? Not low quality, low demand. They're dime a dozen, and then short form's about to hit that same tidal wave. Where I just think that you're gonna see short form videos of everyone that you follow that weren't made by them, or maybe they were made by them and their team, but counterfeits, and I hope that the platforms can moderate and control that, but it's going to be a while before they can. And the ability for short form content creators to just post 10 times, 100 times a day with short form videos that AI generated, because you don't actually have to sit down and film it and set up a camera and edit, and we're about to experience a technological shift that's going to drastically change information media generally, is my prediction. And so sitting with that a few weeks ago, I'm like, what is the most insulated version of communicating with people online from that force? And I think it's something like podcasting and live streaming are probably going to be the safe havens where you can count on having an authentic experience with someone. It might not stay that way. But I think that it's important for you to hear me ramble and make mistakes and say it wrong and forget the word that I'm trying to say or something. I think that in a world where AI is just going to make the question mark of, is this real? The only way that people can count on having an authentic experience with someone, with their thoughts, is probably through something like a podcast that you can feel confident wasn't AI generated, that they actually sat down and had that conversation, or live. I think live is better. So good. Here I am, live streaming. So that is going to be a pretty big push. I'm doing it for the month of December and then early January. I might do it indefinitely. I'm kind of doing a pilot, so to speak, for the next month, and just to see how I like it, to see how you like it, to see if you're enjoying yourself. And then I guess I'm going to try to get my sea legs under me, and I'm going to approach it a few different ways and feel it out. Did you enjoy it so far? What do you think? Did you like hanging out for the past hour and a half? Was the audio okay? I didn't engage with the chat as much as I wished. I guess there's some improvements to be made there. Yeah, everyone's being kind. Well, there's going to be replays available of this on YouTube and maybe Instagram. YouTube, for sure. I haven't decided if I'm going to post on Instagram yet. I think Instagram has an hour limit, and we might have already passed that. Oh, yeah. Instagram shut down a while ago. No, wait. Instagram's still here. Are you still here with me? Scammer TN7W says. All right, so I need someone to moderate my chats. That's good. Matthias is selling scam courses. Marco Bus the Bot says, Get out of here, bot. Oh no, there's expletives in the chat. What do we do? All right, so I'll figure that out, team. I promise we won't have trolls yelling from the back. We'll figure that out. All right. Yeah, appreciate you too. Instagram's still on. Okay, good. Instagram, please. Yeah, okay, I'll post it on Instagram this time, and I'll post it on YouTube. You can get a horizontal version of this stream on YouTube, and let's say you can get the vertical version on Instagram. I made 2 versions. This has been a technical nightmare to try to figure out in a positive way, but I hope it's been good. You need to block people. Yeah, well, I'm sorry. What? Man, I'm looking at Instagram. The bots are active. Ah, the bots are talking about my family. All right, I'll find someone to moderate. Yeah. I should land the plane. I'm trying to think if there's anything else before I let you go that I need to let you go. If you want to sign up for estrangement.com, just go to estrangement.com. Simple enough. Yeah, just estrangement.com. Sign up there. I'll see you in the forum. We have lots of live sessions where I'm on live calls that are different than these. Ones where I prep, I have little lecturettes, lessons, live Q&As, feedback sessions, like I said, where I actually get on and you and I get on a call if you're brave to get in front of the group one-on-one in that private space to talk about your situation. And you get to listen in on other people's conversations and other people's processes. Lots of other fun stuff in there too. And I'm pretty active commenting in the group. So if you want to get a hold of me, get in estrangement.com. Would love to see you there. And I'll see you on Thursday. Thursday. What time did I say? 1 o'clock. Good. Good. All right. Goodbye, everybody. I care about all of you. How do I shut this down?